Hey everyone, welcome to part 24 of my no armor, no ranged weapon, no deaths, fist only playthrough of Demon Souls. Here I'm doing the bottom section of Upper Latria. This is a pretty basic section, there's not really a lot here. All I'm doing is walking around looking for items, but as far as progress and moving forward, there's really not much to do, just follow the path. I did remember there was a prisoner horde here, which is the same type of enemy that was in the Prison of Hope. You know, the thing that looks a bit like the boss at the end of Inside. There it is there. I thought this one might be a little bit more challenging because there was no pillar to hide behind. You basically have to get out in the open with it if you're going to fight it with fists. But just like the one in the Prison of Hope, it's really just a patience game with this enemy. Just wait till it stops flailing, dodge its ranged blast, and then run in and get in a few hits. With claws on this time, I was doing a lot more damage than I was to the one in the Prison of Hope though, so yeah, this fight went a lot faster than that one did. If you have Black Will tendency, the Sodden Ring is behind one of the pillars here. So once you kill a prisoner horde enemy, you can grab the Sodden Ring. Unfortunately, on a no-death playthrough, the Sodden Ring is not available. So not something I could get to help me at all. And just if you didn't know, the Sodden Ring enables you to move faster and roll through swampy water. It's actually not a ring that was available in the original. I never played the original, but yeah, apparently it's only a ring that was made available in the remake. So now all I have to do is kill these man centipedes and the giant man centipedes that are around here and make my way up toward the ivory tower, before which is the man eater boss. I just had to make sure though that I collected all the items I could see, because once again, a part of the challenge of this run was I wasn't just doing fists only no death. I wanted to do a fists only, no armor, no ranged weapon, no death, full playthrough of the game. So completing as much of the game as I possibly could. So up there to the right's where I'm meant to be going, but I knew there was still an area here that I hadn't been to yet, so I had to go and complete that first. And that's a plague resistance ring. I had no idea there was one here. I must have picked it up in my first playthrough, but just completely forgot about it. I thought the only plague resistance ring was in the Tunnel City area just before Flame Lurker, but I couldn't remember exactly where the one before Flame Lurker was either, so I went to Valley of Defilement without a plague resistance ring because I couldn't remember where both of them were apparently. Still, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't come here to get it before doing the Valley of Defilement anyway. This path leads to the Man-Eater boss, and the Man-Eater boss is arguably more difficult than any of the bosses in the Valley of Defilement by nature of the fact that when you fight Man-Eater with fists, it can be a very long fight, and the longer a fight goes for, the more room there is for something to go wrong. So I really wanted to be as leveled up as I could be with as much health as I could be before coming to the Man-Eater boss. I mean, I could have come here for the ring and then warped out of here, but it just seems like a waste of time to go through all of that, kill all of these enemies, and come down here and then just leave and then have to do it all over again. So even though I know the plague resistance ring is here, I wouldn't come here before Valley of Defilement, even now. And honestly, I barely missed the ring in the Valley of Defilement anyway, so it's no big deal. I really wasn't that worried about this Black Phantom Mineflayer. It's a narrow area, but with the Thief Ring on, pretty easy to run up and get a backstab on it. The Mineflayer I was really worried about was further up ahead. I remembered there was one on a narrow set of stairs. I couldn't remember how far ahead that was, but yeah, I knew that one was going to be really tricky in a no-death run because it could easily knock you off the stairs. But this one, not a problem. I've said it a million times before, but if you didn't know, I'm not using any shields in this. I only pulled out the Adjudicator shield there to take advantage of its passive healing ability. But yeah, I'm not using any armor or any shields in this run. These giant man centipedes remind me of The Thing, the movie The Thing. The original 80s movie, that is. All of these crystal lizards are such a tease when you're using fists. They're just basically impossible to hit unless you can get one on a slope, and even then, if you're not doing enough damage, killing them is practically impossible with bare fists before they get away. I didn't remember that there was any ambush here, but I could hear some wings flapping, so I knew to look around, and there it is, waiting up there for me to run out in the open. and now stuck like a dumbass. So I thought, alright, I'll just outrun it. And then it took off like Superman, and I wasn't going to outrun it. And then I looked up and there's just gargoyles everywhere. Gargoyles really aren't that scary. I mean, if it went really badly, they might be able to knock you off the bridge to your death, but overall they aren't really scary. But when there's a bunch of them around, yeah, I had to play this pretty carefully. Here I was hoping to run all the way to the end. I knew there were a few about, but I didn't expect this second one to land, and then I didn't expect this first one to take off and drag the camera up with it, which obscured my vision of my feet and put me in a position where I didn't know where I was retreating to until I had a chance to lock off. So yeah, that was a moment of panic because I would have hated to retreat from that fight and fall off the edge to my death. That would have just sucked. And it happens here again as well. I'm locked on. The gargoyle takes off, the camera goes up, now I can't see where I'm backing off to. A better player than me would have known to D-lock and stay D-lock, not to lock on at all to these enemies, but here I continue to lock on like an idiot. So I'm lucky I didn't fall to my death just by playing foolishly. And there I go again, locking on. Yeah, I wouldn't lock on to these gargoyles again for a run like this, a no-death run in the future, that's for sure. And after all that, it didn't even have the common decency to drop its item on the ledge for me. I also remembered to be prepared for a gargoyle attack upon immediately getting off this elevator. I knew the first thing to do was to roll ahead instead of just walk slowly. There it is. I was pretty sure that you were meant to be able to go up there to get the key for Lord Riddell's cell in Prison of Hope. And I thought that maybe you could only access that way up once you had this area at Pure White World Tendency. I knew Pure White World Tendency had something to do with getting that key, so I wasn't going to labor over trying to find it right now until I'd finished this entire world. But yeah, I suspected it was either there or on the other tower where I could get that key. But of course it would have to wait until I'd beaten all the bosses for this entire world. Getting that key and freeing Lord Riddell was one of the challenges on my list of many Pure White World Tendency events that I wanted to do all in a row before I beat the final boss in this playthrough. I thought it would be cool and challenging to do all the Pure White World Tendency events that way, and yeah, that's one of them that was in my mind that I could do. But honestly, even though it was on my list, I didn't know exactly where I was going to find that key, so I didn't know how that was going to play out just yet. I could see some items down there on the right, so I knew I'd missed an area. It looked like, I wasn't sure, but it looked like the only way to get to it was to follow this path down and go down and to the right, so yeah, that's what I decided to do here. I mean, Upper Latria is not that confusing, but the areas all do kind of look similar. and I didn't know it like the back of my hand. So as soon as I saw those items, I thought there's probably a couple of areas that I've missed as well. But every time I saw an enemy like this, I was pretty happy because that meant I knew I hadn't been this way. When you're doing a no-death run and you're not resetting the area because of deaths, enemies don't respawn. So if you see an enemy is alive, you know you haven't been that way yet. I could see two enemies there, and there was no way I was going to take both of them on a narrow ledge, so I wanted to get back to this doorway, kill one at a time. Otherwise I could see myself getting booped off the ledge to my death, almost certainly. A run like this would be made much more challenging without the thief ring, that's for sure. So many enemies disengage with you just when you get even like a few meters away from them, even if they've already seen you. The amount of times I would have been fighting multiple enemies at once with fists only without the thief ring, I reckon might have changed the whole ball game. But yeah, a challenge run without the thief ring might be in my future, I think. And there I can see I was learning, because as soon as he took off into the air, I de-locked. These gargoyles are a cool looking enemy, but damn, they're annoying when they just take off into the air and just refuse to come back down. And I knew that was going to be a problem in the man-eater boss fight as well, because the man-eater, there's two of them, and they're well known for taking off into the air and just refusing to engage during the boss fight. And I guess this is where the thief ring works against you, when you really want to attract an enemy and the enemy just can't see you. They did really well making this area look so thick and gooey, like it's not just red blood stained water, it's just all thick, gooey and sludgy. It's got such a really cool vibe going here. Oh yeah, and I cut the giant man centipede's tail off. If you watch when I'm hitting it here, you'll see its tail come off. When I saw that, it reminded me that you have to try to cut the tails off the man-eater bosses. Or rather that I would have to try to cut them off. Depends on your strategy, of course, but when you're fighting with fists, cutting their tails off prompts them to do more melee attacks. So if I could cut their tails off, it meant the fight might go a little bit faster by bringing them to me. So seeing those tails come off then reminded me that, yeah, I've got to try to do that in the boss fight. In hindsight, when I started up Latria, I actually thought from memory that it was a short area. The distance from the archstone to the boss wasn't really that long, but in narrating these parts, I can see the area is actually a lot longer or a lot bigger than I remembered it to be. This was the most worrying part of the whole area to me. This winding staircase goes all the way up to the top. You have to go up it to get to the boss, and I knew there was a Mineflayer on it, and all the Mineflayer would have to do is use its lantern ability on me once, and that would likely throw me off to my death. I really wasn't sure how to handle this just yet. I had to make it up on the fly, but I really wanted to try and lure that Mineflayer down here. And interestingly, I go here to put my thief ring on, which meant I actually didn't have the thief ring on before when I thought I did and that enemy disengaged. Maybe not having the thief ring on wouldn't be that much of a challenge after all. Or maybe it would be, because it certainly would be in this spot, that's for sure. Without the thief ring here, that Mineflayer would be shooting at you from a much further distance away, and I really didn't want to be shot at and potentially knocked off these stairs. I wanted to lure the Mineflayer down to the bottom, was the only option I thought to protect myself from being knocked off here to my death. I did contemplate trying to just sprint past it, but I wasn't sure if that was possible to do without falling off. And I really didn't want to come this far and risk falling off, so I didn't really want to test if I could do that. The only way I was going to definitely run past it is if I'd done something to engage it to put it on, the left or right side of the stairs, creating a definite gap. Yeah, I've got to say this was pretty harrowing. I was hoping to be able to backstab it, and it turned and prevented me from being able to backstab it. I did manage to get out of range of its attack though, and was hoping it would follow me. But because I had the thief ring on, it lost sight of me more or less straight away. Maybe it would have followed me if I didn't have the thief ring on. Maybe having the thief ring on here actually made this more difficult. What I learned a moment ago though was running around it was pretty difficult, because when I couldn't backstab it and it turned around, it kind of acted a bit like a blocking volume, preventing me from moving forward. So I knew if I wanted to try to run around it, as long as that Mineflayer was standing in the middle of the stairs, there was a good chance I could be knocked or could fall off. So I pretty much decided my best approach was to try to sneak up and get a backstab and then run away. So that's what I'm doing here. Sneak up, get a backstab, and run away. And that's the thief ring helping me do that. Definitely would not be able to do this strategy that I'm doing here if I didn't have the thief ring on. So I think without the thief ring, the idea would be to lure the Mineflayer to the bottom to get it off the stairs entirely, because it may chase you if it doesn't lose sight of you. But with the thief ring, what I'm doing right now seems to be the safest approach. Well, at least it was for me. Or should I say, at least it was for me here. I think the best approach is to do what I'm doing here, give it a backstab, and then whilst it falls down, just keep running forward. That way you can move through the game a bit quicker. I didn't really need to kill it, I just wanted to get past it, and pretty easy to get past it with the thief ring. Run up and do a backstab and then just continue running, which from memory I think is something I do later on in my playthrough. In any case, extremely relieving to kill that Mineflayer and be able to move on up these stairs without the risk of being knocked off. Alright, so this is the top of the tower, and the Man-Eater boss fight is just ahead. So to prepare for it, I'm cleaning out my inventory to reduce my item burden. This is because when I did this run, I believed item burden actually affect how fast you could move and how fast you could roll, and I wanted to be as light as possible to move fast against the Man-Eater, but thanks to a commenter, I now know that that's not the case. Equipment burden is all that matters, so I'm just wasting my time here. Now this part's already at the 27-minute mark, and spoiler alert, I can tell you that the Man-Eater boss fight goes for a very long time. It's a whole part to itself. So with that said, I'll end this part here and we'll start part 25 with the actual boss fight. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.